Hey, all my beauty professionals. Today we're going to be talking about sodium hydroxide relaxers. So stay with me. All right, so the first thing we want to do is section her in 4 sections once she's been draped, which we do double draping, and that is for double the protection from any saturation of chemicals or water getting through to her clothing or to her skin. And so you're just going to do your basic down the middle from the hairline to the nape, and then from the top point of the head, which is called the apex, and you bring it down to the ears. So in other words, when you come down, you should feel the comb touch that high point of the ear, right? Her hair is pretty tangly today. One thing I want to tell you really quick, why in school you learn this and why you section this way, is to really give you control over the hair, right? But I do want to let you know this, especially when you're doing a relaxer touch up on someone, you won't always section this way, because let's say if the back of her hair was all shaved and tapered in, but she's coming for a relaxer in the back, you wouldn't have enough length in the hair to get it up in clips, right? So you would section off the longer part, but maybe it's just in 2 sections up here, and then this won't be sectioned at all. But the reason why you're sectioning that really is so that no hair gets in your way, right? So it's for you to have control. Always remember that. And these aren't my best 4 sections, but yeah, because that one's a little higher up. Let me fix this. All right, so we have her sectioned in 4 really quick, because I didn't get a chance to tell you what I have on my SMA. So I have, for myself, I have 2 pairs of gloves just in case something happens and I drop a glove or whatever. So I have 2 pairs. You don't have to have that, but at least have 1 pair. I am going to be using simulated product today because I didn't feel like using a real relaxer on the mannequin head. Now in the future, if I have a person who wants their hair relaxed, maybe I'll show that. But as of right now, I'm just kind of showing you like how, if you've never done a relaxer before, the proper application for it. So we're going to use simulated product. I have Vaseline, which is called a protective base, and that's actually a little different from hair coloring when you use a protective cream. Protective cream is actually lighter than petroleum base, although sometimes people will use this as a protective cream, but there is a difference. I have my tint bowl, I have my tint brush, and then I have all-purpose and a rat tail comb. I'm going to show you also the technical proper way to smooth, and then I'll show you how I actually really smooth, like in the real world. So now here's the thing about protective base, and they actually make a protective base for a relaxer, but it's still petroleum base. So it doesn't matter if you use the real Vaseline or if you use a company protective base. I'm not sure, I think it's Pro Style that makes one. I know it was like orangey, but it's still, the consistency is heavy, just like Vaseline, so it doesn't matter. I will tell you this though, from experience, if the hair is finer, you may not want to use a protective, not protective base, what I'm trying to say, you may not want to use a petroleum base for the scalp, because when you go to finish the relaxer, the hair is way too oily. So sometimes what we've done, okay, now I'm going to go down the middle parting so you can see that there. I'm going to apply it in the scalp here before I actually take a section down and I'm going to base every subsection. So you ask, oh, what if it gets on the hair? Is that okay? Yes, it is okay. Because relaxer is so strong, which is sodium hydroxide, it will eat through it. So don't worry about that. What I was going to say is what I've done, and not just me, but some of my coworkers in the past, is we will use an oil sheen, which is a spray oil, and it's lighter than Vaseline, and you just would spray the parting, and I've sprayed my fingers and applied it on the outer part, and then you just go through and spray every subsection, so it's much lighter, but it's still protecting the scalp. And so that's the goal. Really, when you use petroleum base for a relaxer, it's buying you some time to apply the relaxer without it burning that client. So remember, one thing that I've said you don't do is ask your client, is it burning? You always want to continue to check on him or her and just say, so how are you doing? You know, you feeling all right? Because if you say that to a client, they're expecting that they should burn, right? And so we don't want them to have that expectation, because it should not be painful to get a relaxer, although it can be. And it's unfortunate because some people are under the misconception that in order for it to be working, you have to feel some sort of pain and you should be burning. That is not true. That is a myth. All right. So that's what it's doing, because the body heat from the head is melting that petroleum as a shield on the scalp. However, if you leave it on for too long, so if you just walk away and say, okay, I'll be back to check on you, that client can get burned, because it will eventually eat through that petroleum, right? So just a little warning there. So I'm going to start in the back. Can you guys see that? And I'm going to start in this little corner here. So I'm going to part it right across, and you'll see like a little triangle, right? And so I'm just going to apply it just like that. You're going to go across and apply just straight across, okay? Now I'm going to show you the entire procedure on this one section, and I just want to do that because I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I don't want to hold you guys up, but I also want to show you how to properly apply this. A lot of times, and it's unfortunate, you'll see professionals just kind of slopping it on there. Oh, and I do want to tell you this too. Your question might be, what if I'm using a no-lie relaxer, or what if I'm using a no-base relaxer? If a client has a sensitive scalp, you should still base their scalp. You could use an oil sheen if you prefer. But just because a relaxer says no lie, a relaxer legally has to have, well, not legally, I shouldn't say that. I will say this, it's legal to say it's a no lie relaxer if there's a certain percentage of it that's in it that doesn't exceed the amount where it would have to be a regular sodium hydroxide or lye relaxer. But think of it this way. Lye is what is used to actually straighten the hair. So if it was absolutely no lye, the hair wouldn't straighten as well, right? So just like a decaffeinated coffee, it actually has 3% caffeine in it. But according to the FDA, it's a small amount where they can legally say it's decaffeinated, all right? So just to let you know that just because you're using a no lie or no base relaxer doesn't mean that you necessarily wouldn't absolutely not base. You may have to, dependent upon the client. And then she already has that there. So I'm going to bring this all down. what else did I want to tell you about relaxers? There's a misconception that relaxers would only be for a specific type of clientele. The only clientele that I would tell you that this particular service is for someone with overly curly hair who wants permanently straightened hair. But remember, I told you, God, what video was that I told you in? I can't remember now, but I know I've told you in past that we have to educate our clients. I think it was in my soft curl perm video, that when someone wants straight hair, because I myself have naturally curly hair, and I've learned from my experience over the years that just because I relaxed my hair in the past, it did not make my hair straight for long. All right, so what it did was it smoothed out my curls, but my hair wasn't completely straight. So this is something that you want to also tell your clients when you're doing a consultation, for them to be aware that it doesn't guarantee that their hair may get straight. You know, it depends on the texture of their hair. It depends on their hormone level, especially when you're a teenager. A lot of times teens get chemicals on their hair and it doesn't work. It's not because the hairstylist did a bad job per se, but because those hormones are covering the hair, it can stop the chemical from working the way it should, right? So I'm going to sanitize my hands here because I'll touch my face. But so yeah, in the consultation, you just want to educate your client on that. It's not a guarantee that their hair is going to be bone straight. Sometimes it is, though. All right. Is there anything else I want to tell you guys about relaxer? I think that's it right now. So we're going to get started with the application. All right, the first thing I want to review with you, which I know I've probably said this in my hair coloring videos, virgin tint to darken, the zones of the hair. It still applies when you're to the, what I'm saying, it still applies to the hair when you're doing a relaxer as well. So in other words, the first ½ inch of hair that's coming out of the scalp, from scalp to ½ inch, is called zone 1. That's where your heat zone is. So what that means is whatever chemicals you're applying there, that's why you have to learn in school when to apply it there, because there's body heat coming out of your scalp, which means the chemical is going to take off just like that, right? Zone 2 starts at that ½ inch and it goes all the way down to the last inch of hair. Now this is kind of hard to determine, but so that's a little bit over an inch technically, but that last inch of hair, that's zone 3, and this all the way up to that ½ inch is zone 2. So really zone 2 usually is the slowest to process because your body heat does not generate all the way down the hair strand, right? So in this case, I want you to remember your first application for a relaxer is zone 2, and you're going to do that all the way around. So remember, in the back you're kind of going at a slant, but it ends up straightening out with your subsections. But in the front you're going straight across, you're parting straight across horizontally, coming all the way down. Now we're going to start in the back here because hair is the curliest in the back, if you remember me telling you that. All right. So I want to make sure this subsection is detangled so I won't have any issues when I'm subsectioning. Your subsection shouldn't be any thicker than ½ an inch. I prefer to do 1/4 inch wide because you want that chemical to really work all the way through. Now this is what I tell beginners when you are first learning how to apply color, perms, whatever it is. You never want to go on one side and then apply on the back, because if your speed is not there yet, you have to work twice as fast when you're doing both sides, because now it's processing on both sides, right? And so if you're new to doing a relaxer and you're doing both sides, that means this side, this whole section could be straight and you haven't even finished this section and you haven't even gotten to the front yet. Okay? So that's just some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years and that I've taught over the years. So zone 2 is your first application. I want to make sure you guys can see. And I'm going to, hold on, sorry ma'am, start a 1/2 inch. If you're not sure where that is, put your finger up as close to the scalp as you can and use that line of your finger as your guide. And that's a 1/2 inch. Come all the way down to that last inch of hair. Now the reason why your ends would be last, you would make sure there's none on that scalp. The reason why is because they're porous, and I've said this before in the color videos as well. So because your ends are porous, that means they're like little sponges and they will soak in the chemical a lot faster. So with a relaxer, what will happen, you'll end up having to cut those ends off if you apply it first because they come out stringy. And I want to put it somewhere where it's not going to be in her face, because that's exactly where it landed. Because no joke, if it gets on her skin, and of course relaxer is heavier than shaving cream, but those of you who are learning in school, you need to learn how to apply this properly, because I promise you, if you don't practice on your mannequin properly, you will go out there and you will do that to a real client. And I know, because I've had that where my students, the ones that I had to fuss at the most about their habits in class, when they graduated onto the floor, they were doing the same thing to the client. And you have to understand, this is practice, and that one day you will be doing this to a real person. So if you don't take pride in your application now, when you do a real client, you could damage and burn that client. And I don't think anybody in their right mind really wants that. So I'm using the line of my finger here to get that 1/2 inch application there away from the scalp. So you can clearly see that line there. And in the wider portions, well, I'll show you. And if you see, my subsections are thin enough to where it's actually soaking through the subsection. So as you can see, I don't have to work it on both sides because it's clearly, so there's my ends, it's clearly going through, right? Sometimes when the section gets wider, what I do is I kind of scoop my hand across as it gets wider, and that allows me to be able to coat the whole thing. Because if you don't, you'll see it's a 1/2 inch here, and then it goes to 1 inch away from the scalp over here. So you don't want that. You want it to be even. You check on her. How you doing, Miss Williams? You doing all right? Good. Would you like a magazine or anything while you're waiting? Okay. Now please understand, for demo purposes, this is why I'm going a little bit slower. But when you're really doing a relaxer, You really want to have it applied to the head. This is virgin application now. You really want it applied to the head in 11 minutes. All right, guys, so we finished applying it to zone 2, which means a half an inch from the scalp up to that last inch of hair. And we've done that in all the 4 sections. So just imagine with me, right? Zone 2 all the way around. Now we're coming back to where we originally started, which was in the back. And it doesn't matter if you start in the back left or back right, as long as you get both back sections done first, because remember, hair is curlier in the back. So if you started on the left, you would work your way around this way. But being that I'm right-handed, I tend to always start on the right, whether it's in the front or the back. All right. So I'm working this way, clockwise. Okay. So now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to apply it to zones 1 and 3 at the same time. I don't need to go over the main hair shaft, because I've already applied it there. So that's kind of wasting my time, right? So I'm going to go back through with my tint brush, and I'm just going to apply it to the root area and to the ends and bring that over. To the root, to the ends. You're going to do that all the way down, right? The root and the ends. The root. So 1 and 3. So think 2, 1, 3. Okay, so I've done that all the way around, imagine. I've done zones 1 and 3 all the way around, right? And at this point, I'm checking to make sure he or she is feeling all right. And Miss Williams is feeling pretty good, right? She has no problems thus far. I'm not going to leave her and go to lunch and come back. I'm not going to smash this on her head like that. No, no, no. So what you can do when you're smoothing the hair properly, you can take your rat tail comb and you can place it in your hands, and you kind of, let's see if you can see this. You would take it on the scalp there and go down your hands like this. You can do it that way. You can use your fingers like this and come down. One thing you don't want to do when you're smoothing someone's hair is milk it, all right? You don't want to do that because this chemical is so strong that as you're pulling on it and putting that pressure on it, you can literally break her hair off, right? You have to understand and study the chemistry of relaxers and understand that this is a perm that changes the chemistry of that person's hair. So I haven't researched it yet, but I would like to. It becomes a lanthionine bond instead of a disulfide bond. And I think I said this in my soft curl, how to do a Jerry curl video. When you're doing a perm using ammonium thioglycolate, it reforms once you neutralize. So those disulfide bonds are restored. Even though they're broken down, they're restored, right? Well, with a relaxer, they're broken down. And when I say relaxer, I mean using sodium hydroxide. they're broken down, but they're never restored. They become a new bond, which means that hair is so fragile that you really have to baby it and take good care of it. So this isn't a service where you want to use this chemical on someone's hair and then do box braids in their hair or do tight feed-in braids, because it can cause massive amounts of hair loss and possible permanent hair loss. So we don't want that. So you can do it with the comb, come all the way down, or you can do it with your fingers like this, but not like that. All right, so that's that. Now sometimes what I will do, especially if it's a retouch, is I will use my temp brush. So I will subsection it and I will just go through and smooth it like that, not adding more product, but just use my brush to smooth, right? But with long hair like this, I wouldn't do that. I would use my comb. But if it's a retouch, I just go like that. And that's okay, because I'm not milking her hair. So that's what I would do. But in the meantime, you will practice what I showed you with the rat tail comb or with your fingers, no milking. When that's all done, and we've done this all the way around the head, then I would continue to smooth until I see my desired straightness, if perchance my client has not gotten irritated. All right. And then once it gets as straight as I want it to get, now I'm going to take her to the shampoo bowl with the neutralizing shampoo that came with the relaxer kit, right? Or with the relaxer company that you ordered through. And I'm going to rinse it very well at a moderate pressure, warm water, never cool water, to get it all out of the head. And it's good to use a neutralizing shampoo that indicates if there's any relaxer left in the hair. You'll see it turn like a color pink, and that lets you know that it's still in the hair. Now this is my own personal trick. This is not something that's by the book, but when I neutralize someone's hair, I don't manipulate the hair like this. I actually shampoo it straight to neutralize the hair straight, and I let it sit for at least 3 to 5 minutes, and then I will rinse it out and I will do it again just in case. And then after that I will really, kind of shampoo. I always do the bottom of the hair really well, but in the scalp area I'm going to come down like this with the shampoo and just work it through like that. All right. And let's see, once I rinse that out, then I'm going to condition her with a protein and moisturizing conditioner, and I'm going to let that sit between 5 to 10 minutes, and that I will rinse out in cool water. And that's just so the hair will have some conditioner in it to really soften that hair, and the protein portion of the conditioner would be to strengthen the hair. So I think that is all I have as far as virgin relaxers go using sodium hydroxide. I want to thank you guys so much for your support, for watching my videos. God bless you, and I'm so happy that I have 300 subscribers now and growing. Thank you all so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.